for the Ambassadors of Death is something has gone wrong. Something has gone seriously wrong with Mars Probe 7. With no contact from the astronauts since the rocket started its return journey from Mars, Space Control is now extremely worried about the fate of the crew. A rescue mission recovers something, but whatever it is, it certainly isn't human. To find out what has happened to the astronauts, the Doctor must head into space without the TARDIS. This is an interesting thriller. It has good action, suspense, mystery, twists, and turns. This serial was the one that actually started the action for this Doctor. What I mean by that is that this serial and others after this, they hired a stunt crew to choreograph and perform action sequences. And when Jon Pertwee saw what they did and how exciting it looked, he said, "This is what I want my Doctor to be," and the era that he would be in. And I have to admit, it fits this era. For since the Doctor is working with the military organization UNIT will get into firefights for whatever reason. So it just fits that the other people, there would be action going on with this era of the Doctor. The action scenes for this serial are quite good and edited well. There were times I thought the Brigadier was actually going to get shot, and he did have some close calls. I forgot to mention this in the last review, so I thought I will mention it here. In the last serial, we see the Doctor has a car of his own, which he calls Bessie. It is a vintage yellow roadster. It is a very old car, and I never questioned on whether the Doctor should actually have that car or not, because it actually just fits this incarnation of the Doctor. With this Doctor being a dandy, charming character, it just fit the look and character of the Doctor and everything. The Doctor is always tinkering with Bessie, adding new gadgets and features to it. In this serial, the Doctor added an energy field that keeps people attached to the car in case they try to steal it, or just something happens. He operates this feature so that some thieves trying to steal the landing craft for the astronauts, and he activates it, and they're imprisoned with attached to the car while the Doctor takes the landing craft back to the British space program. Unfortunately, he didn't give it enough power, so the field weakened and the thieves escaped while he was returning the landing craft. The Ambassadors of Death themselves are interesting. We only get to see a glimpse of what they really look like, since they wear the spacesuits of the British astronauts to survive on Earth and to protect people from the radiation they naturally emit. However, if you actually do touch them, you will still die immediately. And the most interesting thing is, well, spoiler alert, is that they are not the villains of this piece. They came to Earth for peace, but a military general is afraid of them and uses them for evil so as to give the world a reason to kill the species. A nice little twist, for I thought the ambassadors were actually working with a group of humans for more nefarious reasons, and it turned out to be false. It was just a general making it look like these people were bad people. For the first time in the entire series, when the cliffhanger comes, there's this musical cue for the Doctor Who theme that is heightened and made loud at the end of the cliffhanger, and then the picture cuts to the credits, and the music plays normally. After this serial, they stopped doing it, but in future episodes later on, they bring it back. And to me, it actually helps the cliffhangers a little. Without it, it is fine, but the heightened musical cue adds more tension and shock to that moment that makes you worry that more about what is going to happen next, and makes you want to get to the next episode more and more, like really quick. The only fault I see with this serial are scenes with blue screen. I kind of let it go because that was the best they could do at the time. That was all they could do. It wasn't as it is now with computers. But there are just some moments when the blue screen fails and just looks bad. For instance, at Mission Control, they have this giant screen to communicate visually between the astronauts. And sometimes it didn't blend well because sometimes it's like a pipe and sometimes there's a camera or something with screen and move and you just see the faults. And at one point, when the Doctor enters an alien craft in space, the image that is projected in front of the blue screen to make it look like the Doctor's in the craft just looks so dull, and it didn't blend well with the actor in it. I give this serial 4.5 stars out of 5. Before I finish this review, here is an interesting little factoid that makes this serial just a little bit more interesting. When the first episode of the serial aired, the events of the Apollo 13 was happening. By episode 5, when the Doctor goes into space in a British space rocket to see if the British astronauts were still in their shuttle and needed rescuing, the American astronauts of Apollo 13 safely returned to Earth. Now, I'm not saying when they spent 5 weeks, the American astronauts spent 5 weeks in space, I'm meaning that the start of the events of Apollo 13 started. I don't think they were actually trapped in space until like episode 4, I think. I can't entirely remember. But basically, it is kind of interesting to see that the Doctor was, in space helping astronauts while the American astronauts were, trapped in space. So it was kind of an interesting little fact. And that's that. And I'll see you on the next review.